Hello and welcome to our last steps of getting started video tutorials. This is step number 14. So just like before, open, select step 14 and then press open again. Within this tutorial we're going to do some sun paths, some camera and navigation wheel options, as well as some render properties. Okay, the first thing I want you to do is go to your view cube, and where it says the front side, I want you to press the top left hand side so we get to see the whole model. Now in your graphic options bar, bottom left, there's a little sun with a red cross on it. I want you to press that and we're going to turn it on. And once you turn it on, you might need to zoom out a little bit. You'll see north, east, south and west compass, as well as a sun with the time at 10 AM and the date is the 1st of June. So there's a number of things we can do here. We can manually change 10 AM to, I don't know, 1 PM. Once you do that and click in negative space, the sun will move. Alternatively, we can select the sun and drag it up or down. We can also change the date. So at the moment it's set to 2010. I'm not quite sure what that's 2010. Let's change that to 2018. And change June to April, so 04. And maybe the 15th, so halfway through April. And you notice the sun path changes. This is really quite cool because you can actually check how your shadows are working in your model. So every time you update something, your shadows will change. Another way to change the sun path is if we go back down to our graphic options bar and press the sun again, you actually have sun settings. So if you press that button, you can do solar study, so you can do still, single day, multi-day, and you can change the lighting, and also you can change the location, the date. You can also change the plane that the sun is on. So at the moment this is set to level 1, but if I was to move it to level 4 for example and then press apply, you'll see that the whole sun path moves up to level 4, which is not exactly correct in the real world, but it's just to be able to show you. Now another thing we can do is create a small animation with our sun path. So if we press multi-day and then over here if we tick sunrise to sunset, the times will change, and we can do intervals of 1 hour, 1 day, 1 week, 1 month. We'll leave it on 1 hour for the moment and then press OK. Now you'll notice that lots of shadows have gone to sunrise. But if we go back to our little sun icon in the graphic options bar, we now have another button saying preview solar study. So if we click that, in our options bar right at the top, which is not green, it should be green but it's not green, we have 1 hour 1.0, so every frame is 1 hour, and we have the dates and the times, and we also have next frame, next keyframe, and a play button. So if we press the play button, you'll notice that the sun moves and shows you exactly what happens during the day. So we can actually press that again and it will show you exactly what's happened. Alternatively, we can do next keyframe and it will jump, and then we have the options to go back. And you can see, if you muck around, you can see exactly what's going on at that point of the day with regards to the sun. Okay, to finish this we can go back down to the graphic options bar and then turn off our sun path. Okay, the next step I'm going to teach you more about the steering wheel, which is this button here. But before we do that, I'd like you to double click on the Sight button and close your 3D tab. So if we go to the ribbon at the top and press the View tab, then under the little house that says 3D View, press the down button and then press Camera, And if we set up our view, click once here and then all the way to the bottom corner here, we have our new view. Now, to elaborate on our steering wheel, we actually have a number of options. We actually have, if you press the little down arrow on the button directly below the steering wheel, we have a full navigation, a mini navigation, a mini view object wheel, and mini tour building wheel. If you select mini tour, you'll notice that you have a tiny little button that says walk down, rewind, etc. I personally hate this because it's so small. The one that I usually use is the full navigation wheel because you can actually read and see things a lot more clearly. So you've already know about the orbit tool because you've done that in previous videos. Now the bottom one, pan. So you must remember you need to click once and keep your finger on the button when doing that. So that's pan. And then we have a zoom, so you click on the button and then you can zoom in to an individual point wherever you place your mouse. So if I place it over here and then press zoom, it will zoom into that point. Then we have the rewind tool, which is quite interesting actually. So if you select that, you'll notice a couple of keyframes will come up and it will actually rewind what you've done. So if you've mucked up your view, you can actually go back and find exactly where you want to be. We have the look tool, so that's pretty much from a person's perspective, looking around. We have the up and down tool, so you can either be incredibly short or incredibly tall. We have the center button, which is actually quite good. So wherever you place your mouse, so if I place it pretty much between these windows and press center, our new pivot will be, you can actually see it on my screen, will be at that point. So when I press the orbit tool, it will orbit around that pivot, which is quite helpful. The other tools are the walk tool. So this is actually quite sensitive, so be aware of this. So once you press walk, you'll notice that a little blue dot, well, a blue circle and a black dot is at the bottom of my screen. If I move my mouse out of that dot, I can actually walk. Now it's very sensitive, so if I move my mouse rapidly high, I'll just disappear into negative space. It's quite crazy, so you need to be a bit sensitive with this. Okay, so you can muck around with the other steering wheels. So we have like a miniature, but we can also have a basic view as well. I use this sometimes just to orbit with less buttons. It's usually a little bit quicker, and then center on a pivot and then orbit around it. But most of the time I generally use the full navigation wheel. Now the next step, I'm going to talk about the graphic options bar in a bit more detail. So at current, your little cube visual style hidden lines is on. So if we select this little white cube and change it to wireframe, you'll see that we can pretty much see every single object within the project. If we go back to the graphic options bar and then press hidden line, that's exactly what we had previously. And then if we go to shaded, it gives you pretty much a color option. If we go to consistent colors, just slightly changes the color systems. We go to realistic, which I showed you in the last video, that enables you to actually see the mesh. Sometimes it can take a little while to load. So if I zoom in on the mesh, this actually does slow down when you're moving around 3D model space. It can be a little bit glitchy sometimes. Then if you go back to it, in the graphic options bar, you have ray trace. This is going to render the current view that you are in. This can take a while. Now once the ray trace button starts working, you'll notice that our model space has a grey board around it saying interactive ray trace mode. This will keep on rendering until you press stop. There are two ways to press stop. You can either go back down to your graphic options bar and deselect ray trace or another option. Alternatively, you can go right to the very top of your window and you can stop it, and you can save where the current ray trace has got to, or you can close it. So I'm just going to stop and close, and I'll get back to my normal view. Okay, going back to graphic options bar, if we put it on consistent colors, continuing in the graphic options bar, we have a little blue sphere with a cross on it. This is your shadows. So if I turn them on, you can actually see, if I zoom in a little bit and then wait, you can see that our shadows are updated. Going back to our graphic options bar, you'll notice a little teapot with a blue light. That's a render button, but I will talk about that in further detail shortly. Moving one across to the right, you have do not crop view. If you select that, your view will be uncropped. To recrop it, just go back and crop it again. Remember that that option is also available in your properties palette. So now that it's cropped down here, you'll see in my properties palette that it says crop view and it's ticked. Going back to the graphic options bar, you have show crop region. So once you select that, it will show the crop region. If you select it again, it will hide the crop region. And again, this option is available in your properties palette by simply ticking and deselecting that box. Going back to your graphic options bar, you have a little house that can lock a 3D view. Once you press that, you can save orientation and lock. This is a little bit of a lie. So for example, if I go to my steering wheel and press orbit, it will not orbit. However, if I go to the pan, you can pan. If you go to the look, you cannot look. If you go to up and down, you can. So it's a bit of a funny lock, really. It locks some things but not all things. So I'm just going to unlock that. Now we have our glasses tool, which I've already taught you once before. If you select that, you can actually hide and isolate particular elements that you select once they're selected in the model. Staying in the graphic options bar, our next option is a reveal and hide elements. Before I press that button, if I go to one of the trees in my views and right click and press hide element, it will hide in the view. Now to find it, I can go to my light bulb, press it, and you can see that it's hidden and it's now red. If I select that tree, I have an option at the top where it says unhide element, so I will unhide it, click back in the space, and you see it's not red anymore. And you will also notice that we actually have a red border to let you know that we're currently in that reveal hidden elements. So turn that back off, just simply go back down to the graphic options bar and repress it. Staying in the graphic options bar, one button to the right of the light bulb, we have temporary view properties. If you select this button and then press temporarily apply template to properties, if we select that, we have a new window that has a visibility graphics in it, but it's actually the template, and we actually did this for our rooms and dimensions floor plans. So if we view type properties in the filter and then press all, we can select a particular graphical style for this view. So we can choose architectural elevations and then press OK, and this temporary view will use the graphic options that is in the template. To undo that, simply go back and then press restore view properties. Going back to the graphic options bar and one more button to the right, we have show analytical model. This is mainly for structural engineers. Once you press that button and zoom in a little bit, you will notice that certain elements of the structure are orange. So that gives you a good idea of where things are structurally sound. To turn that off, simply go back to the button and hide it. Going back to our graphic options bar, we actually have a button that says highlight displacement sets. As nothing is actually displaced in this model, it won't work. it will show you a green highlighted box, but nothing's displaced. So if we deselect that, and I'll show you how to displace parts of the model. So to use the displacement tool, if we zoom in slightly to this curtain wall, and once we've found it, and then we click, and the whole curtain wall is highlighted. Once you do that, in the ribbon, you'll notice it's green, and there's also the view section. You'll notice a little button that says displace elements. Once you click that, you'll have an axes button on your screen which enables you to pull it up, down, left and right, and at all angles. If we just currently use the red arrow, click once and then pull towards us, we can actually do an exploded view, but also we can add actual path lines. So to see it better, if I just change my graphic attributions to hidden line, and if I rotate the view slightly, but if I center on the curtain wall before I do that, and I select the curtain wall that we pulled out, in the ribbon under the modified displacement set we have a path. So if we click that button and then if we hover over the corners, you'll notice we have dotted lines that appear that link back to the model. To exit this, press escape. So you can see our witness lines, our path lines of the exploded view. Now if we go back to the graphic options bar and now select highlight displacement sets, the window will have a green border and our curtain wall will become green, highlighting it. Now this may seem like a little bit weird because we know that we've just done that, but if you've got loads of displacement parts and you're not quite sure what is what, it's a good way to view it and see it and highlight it. Okay, so to exit this, simply go back to your graphic options bar and deselect it, and everything will go back to normal. Okay, if I zoom in just slightly into this timber wall, and if I press realistic in the graphic options bar, and now I go back down to my graphic options bar and go to the sun settings, if I choose a still day, summer solstice, and change the time to 5 PM and then press apply, our wall becomes more visible with less shadow. So then I'll press OK. And then from here, we're going to change the material so it looks even more realistic. So if I highlight my wall by hovering over, then clicking it once, over in the properties palette, I want you to select edit type and a new window will open. The next thing I want to do is change the material. So under construction, under structure, along to the right, the edit button, select that. We're going to change the wood timber, which we previously changed. We're going to change it to be a bit more realistic. So we select wood timber, a little button arrives. We click that little button. Another window opens, and we're going to change it to wood facade MPK. Now if you can't see that on your screen, just type in MPK. Scroll down to the bottom, you'll see wood facade MPK. Click that once, then press OK, and then OK again, and then OK one more time. Wait until it has updated. Click in negative space, so it's deselected, and you will see that our wood is more realistic. Okay, so now that we've updated our timber facade to be a little bit more realistic, you will notice that if you zoom out, it's quite laggy, purely because the CPU is using a lot of information with the realistic graphics setting on. So the best thing to do is turn this off. to hidden line. Now once you're happy with the particular view, so if I just center on here and just orbit a little bit, and if I widen my view by turning the crop regions view visible and just drag that out slightly, and maybe pan a little bit. Okay, so I'm now happy with my view setup. We're now going to render. So going back down to your graphic options bar, we're now going to select the teapot. So once you press that, a new little window will open. Okay, within this window we have a number of options. We have the main render button, which I don't want you to press just yet. We have a region button, so once you press that button you get a little red square in your drawing area, and you can actually make this larger, smaller, and you can render just a small little image so it doesn't take up so much time. If I deselect that, that box will disappear. We have the quality settings, so we have draft, medium, high, best, custom, and edit the custom. Below we have the output settings, so you can do a render of your screen resolution or your printer resolution. The average that I generally use is 150 dpi, which is quite good quality. If I'm doing huge presentations I might ramp it up to 300 or 600. We also have lighting options, so we have the sun only, sun and artificial, artificial only, and we also have interior renders, so you can be inside the building and do sun only, which will come in from the outside, or sun and artificial, or artificial only, so you can do some night renders. You can also change the sun. So you've already seen this window. Once you press those little dots here, you have still, single day, multi-day. I've already shown you this, so I'll cancel that. And you can have background options. So when the sky is rendered, you have a choice of no clouds, few clouds, very few clouds, etc, etc. You can even just do a color image, so it could just be a bright pink if you want, or you can do your own image. So if you've got a great background of a cityscape or some sort of country landscape, you can import that, and you can have it transparent, so if you're wanting to do some photoshopping later on, you can do that. Once you've done your render, you also have adjust exposure button, which enables you to change the values of the exposure, the highlights, the shadows, the saturation and the white points. This is usually done once the render is finished. Once a render is done, you can actually flip between the two just to show your original model and the render, as long as you don't move your view once it's been rendered, otherwise it will lose that option. Okay, this concludes our getting started video tutorials. I hope you enjoy your renders and you get some lovely images coming from this model. Please join us in our next step, which is advanced detailing, and we'll see you in the next lot.